Hello there, this is Professor Cash, and today we're going to talk about covering the Texas Legislature, or as we journalists like to call it, the Ledge. Before we get started, I want to give you 3 tips to remember. First, learn your way around the Capitol complex of buildings, above ground and underground. It's a sprawling complex, and you can get lost easily. Second, learn the jargon. Lege-speak has a vocabulary all its own, and you need to know what they're talking about when they lapse into this unknown vocabulary. And third, always remember to put a human face on your coverage and report the issues from the perspective of the people who will be affected by the legislation. So, who are these people passing laws? We've got 150 members in the Texas House, 31 members in the Senate. The vast majority are white males, and about a third of them are attorneys. So now you understand what I mean about Lege-speak. When we look at the demographics of the legislature, the lawmakers, compared to what Texas looks like, it's easy to see very quickly that the makeup in the Texas House and the Texas Senate doesn't really accurately reflect what Texas looks like. Texas has just a shade more women than men, about 50-point-something% women to about 49% men. In the Texas legislature, out of 181 members, we've only got 38 women. So where's the action in the legislature? Remember the 3 C's: committee hearings, corridors, and cantinas. So if you want to find out what's really going on, if you're going to cover the legislature, you'll need to go to the committee hearings. Both the House and the Senate are divided into all sorts of subcommittees who discuss the bills before they actually come to the Senate floor or the House floor for a vote. So if you go to the committee hearings, look at the agendas, you can quickly figure out which issues are coming up for consideration and discussion and testimony from people in the public who are affected by the proposed laws. In the corridors, the hallways in the House and the Senate are a good place to eavesdrop. Listen in on conversations between the lawmakers, their staffs, the lobbyists, and the special interest groups who are there trying to advocate passage or non-passage of certain issues. Cantinas, I mean bars, I mean watering holes. That's where so much of the business gets done. Sad to say, but Texas is a state of influence peddling, and that peddling takes place after hours, during happy hour, and into the wee hours of the night, where lawmakers have drinks, have dinner, and have lobbyists whispering in their ear about what to vote for. So here's some broad ideas on how to cover the legislature. Read the bills. They're all posted online. Again, it's in legislative speak, but there are handy analyses available from the House and the Senate. More on that later. Meet the players. Make friends with the staff in the House and the Senate. Each senator and representative has a big staff usually. The chief of staff, the chief legislative staffer, those people can be instrumental in explaining to you exactly what's going on. And very often, you can talk to them much more easily than you can talk to the elected lawmaker. Know the issues. Always follow the hot button issues: money, public safety, health, children, education. Get the numbers and do your own math. Remember that reports generated by lobbyists or by lawmakers can be manipulated and tailored to fit their agenda and what they're trying to propose to the public. So don't automatically trust the numbers that are provided in a report. Do your own math. See if it adds up to 100%. See if it tracks what's been previously reported. And that's a good segue into conquering your fear of the state budget. It's a massive document, several feet high, and you're not going to be able to sort through it. That's where knowing the staffers comes in handy, because they can interpret it for you. Leave the Capitol. Like we say in all reporting, nothing really happens in a meeting. The big issues are out on the streets, on the playgrounds, in the businesses, on school campuses. Talk to real people to do your reporting about legislative issues. Okay, so learn your way around the grounds. If you go online to Texas Legislature online, there are handy maps that plot out the Capitol complex and show the maps and layouts of the Capitol buildings. There's a brand new underground complex of offices, committee rooms, hearing rooms, auditoriums, a gift shop, and a cafeteria. It's easy to get lost. The numbers don't really make sense. So figure out where you're going, or else you'll find yourself on the wrong floor in the wrong room when you're supposed to be covering a committee hearing. Parking, also very important. There's a parking garage, a state parking garage on San Jacinto Street, easy walking distance to the Capitol. Don't count on finding a parking place on the street. There aren't any. So I mentioned before that there are research agencies within the state capitol. Again, this is all available online. If you go to Texas Legislature online, you can search bills, you can search authors of the bills, you can look for staffers' names, contact information, you can look for registered lobbyists, and you can also look to see whether the committee hearing that you want to cover has been canceled. You can look at the list of witnesses who have signed up to testify. Great information. If you can't make it to the Capitol, if you are working in a market away from Austin, you can still cover the legislature. Most of the action is live streamed. And if you can't be there for the live streaming, you can go in and listen to the archived sessions. Committee hearings are also video recorded and archived. So here's a cute chart of how bills become law. And it really is that convoluted. I know it looks like a board game, and in reality, it is a game. When a bill is introduced, its fate is usually already predestined. How does a bill really become law? First of all, somebody gets pissed off. So a lobbyist writes up a proposed bill. The lobbyist finds somebody in the corridor or in the cantina, gets that lawmaker to sponsor the bill. The lawmaker introduced the bill, witnesses line up on either side to testify for or against, and then the loudest, best financed side wins. That's a cynical view of how lawmaking works, but in my experience, it's also a realistic view. After a law is passed in the Senate and the House, it goes to the governor's office. And that's where the final adjudication occurs. The governor can sign the bill, he can veto it, or he can do nothing and just allow it to become law without his signature. If it's hallmark legislation, the governor's going to want to call a press conference, there's going to be cameras, there's going to be all sorts of press there, and he'll make a big show of signing this bill that apparently has his backing, support, and favor. Or he can veto it, which he has done in many cases. Texas governors like to veto bills. It's possible for a governor's veto to be overridden by the House and Senate. So overriding the veto would require calling a special session and getting all the legislators to come back to Austin, reconvene to override the governor's veto. I can't remember of any time that's happened in the last 25 years. The Texas Legislative Council is the body that actually writes most of the bills. They are permanent staff who sit there day after day, understanding the legislative vocabulary, taking a lobbyist's or a lawmaker's idea for legislation and turning it into the pro forma official language for it to become law. The Legislative Budget Board is also a permanent committee of the legislature. It develops the budget and policy recommendations for how Texas spends its money and distributes revenue from all the different funds that it controls. There's great research available on their website, great explanations. It's all written in English that anybody can understand, and they've got staffers who will answer questions if you're confused by a certain issue. I told you about translating Lege-speak, very important. Understand what a joint resolution is, understand what the consent calendar is. Fiscal notes are especially important because those are attached to a bill when the proposed legislation will require extra funding beyond what's already in place. Remember, you are there as a stand-in for all the people in Texas who can't be there when the committees meet, when the House convenes, when the senators debate a bill. You are there to report on legislation from the perspective of the people who will be affected by it. Writing style on legislative stories is somewhat different. Don't get too bogged down by spelling out the long title of the bill. On first reference, just say Senate Bill 123. On subsequent references, second references, third references, and so on, abbreviate that to SB 123 or HB 123 for House Bill 123. Or you can just say the bill. There's a lot of digital coverage of the legislature these days. There is a legislative tweet, there's social media. Scrib Live covers lots of the committee hearings that are going on, and you should too. Get your social media accounts up and running, make sure they're current, post to them frequently, cultivate some followers, and tweet out what you are hearing on the floor of the Senate or the House and during committee meetings. And the last bit of advice is always follow the money. You recognize these guys, Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward? They were memorialized in the Watergate fiasco of this early 70s, later profiled in the movie and the book All the President's Men. They knew something was wrong with the break-in at the Watergate complex because it just went beyond an ordinary burglary. They followed the money, and you should follow the money too when you're covering the legislature. Where's the money coming from? Where is the money going? And who's going to benefit or suffer because of that trail?